Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Morning. Let's try that again. Good morning. There we go. It's great to be back with you. Missed you last week. Kind of. Did miss you, but it was actually having a lot of fun. But it's good to relax every once in a while, right? Right? That's okay, right? Okay. We all need to do that from time to time, and God blessed with a great little trip and excursion, so we're grateful for that. But it's great to be back with you today and discussing something that's pretty apropos. The title for today is If Tomorrow Never Comes. Have you ever thought about that? Because I think there's been, including the prayer request this morning, too many instances where we see the reality of that. You know, so often in our lives we act as if we have all kinds of time. In fact, I know for years my motto was, why do today what I can put off till tomorrow? Anyone else here ever feel like that? I mean, we do that a lot, right? And we tend to procrastinate, and we tend to just take our time doing whatever, acting like we have all the time in the world. But you know what? There needs to be an urgency in our lives. An urgency. And when the Lord gives us another day, then that's great. We treat that one with an urgency. And when He gives us another month and another year and another decade, Lord willing, that's awesome. But we need to make the most of every day that God gives us, because it is a gift, and there are not only our lives that are affected by it, but others as well. So today we want to discuss that. What if tomorrow never comes? Hold on a second. We're all over the place. Here we go. All right, so never wait for tomorrow. What if tomorrow never comes? That actually was said by Elvis Presley, believe it or not. And then, of course, another quote from one of the great theologians of our time, SpongeBob SquarePants. You didn't know that, huh? Why do today what you can put off till tomorrow? What is today but yesterday's tomorrow? Very philosophical, isn't it? But today was yesterday's tomorrow, isn't that true? And tomorrow will soon be today, but we have no certainty. So we're going to look at Scripture this morning and use this as our backdrop. James 4, verse 13 to 17. We looked at this a few months back when we were in the book of James, but I want to review it today as our backdrop for what if tomorrow never comes. It says, "Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city. We'll spend a year there. We're going to carry on business. We're going to make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast and brag. All such boasting is evil. Anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it sins." I want to review this verse just for a few moments, because isn't it true that many of us, we make plans, right? And I'm not saying we shouldn't make plans, right? How many of you keep a calendar? Anyone? So you keep that calendar, and on that calendar, it tells you things that are coming up, right? So if I were to look into my phone right now, and if I were to go through that calendar for the week, there's certain things that I have scheduled that I want to be able to remember. And I can tell you that if I didn't have them on there, I probably, in many cases, would forget. I have certain things coming up, but I can't remember exactly where they are or when they are, and so I'll look going, I know that was a Saturday. Which Saturday is it? Oh, there it is. And I have to be reminded. And these are all things put on the calendar that are tentatively planned. But I will tell you this, there's no certainty that any of those things will come off as scheduled. Certain people may or may not be there. I may or may not be there. That's the plan, but it's not a certainty. And so we make plans a lot. In fact, many of you have been told through the years to have to-do lists, to have plans, to have 1-year goal, 5-year goals, 10-year goals. Those are going obsolete as life changes so much. But we go through life planning to do things, but then life often throws a hitch in those things. We see the example here where it says, tomorrow we're going to go to this or that city. Well, you might. Or you might not. Spend a year there. How would we possibly know that for sure? We're going to carry on business there. We're going to make money. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. He says, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow, and you're planning out all of this particular time? Your life is like a vapor and a mist that appears, and suddenly it is gone. We are supposed to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. We're supposed to be consulting God on a regular basis. Lord, what is it that you want me to do today? I wonder, do you go into every day with that type of thought? You think you know what you're going to do the rest of the day today. You think you know what you're going to do tomorrow. But are we asking God when we get up in the morning, Lord, what is it that I'm really supposed to do today? Where are you really going to take me? You have no idea all the people you're going to encounter, and you don't know what they're going through. In fact, some people that you encounter, this could be their last day. We often don't think about that. We don't realize that. Some people that you encounter might be going through something very, very difficult, and it could be the last opportunity to receive hope from someone, and that someone might be you. We cross the paths of people, and we have events, and it's all going so quickly every single day, and we don't understand. Often we don't ask and acknowledge the fact that God puts all these events and all these people and all this timing and everything together the way that he does. And we just go through it, not even paying attention. And it tells us here that when you're thinking about your days, you're supposed to be asking God, God, what is your will in these days? What am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to respond? How am I supposed to show kindness to someone else? How am I supposed to be loving towards them? Or am I? We often don't ask the questions, and we waste so much time. It tells us here. Here's the thing, I think the most startling statement that we need to see from these verses, right there at the end. Anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it sins. Sometimes people look at that. I've looked at it before and go, it's talking about today and you don't have certainty tomorrow. And then there's this statement about the one who knows to do good and does it not, to him it is sin. That doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the passage. Oh, yes, it does. It fits perfectly with the rest of the passage. It's saying that today there's things you know you're supposed to do. And yet you're ready to put it off and be lazy and wait until tomorrow. There's an invitation you're supposed to make. There's a text you're supposed to send. There's a way you're supposed to encourage somebody and you've been putting it off. There's a habit you're supposed to give up. There's something you're supposed to change. There's something you're supposed to get in order. There's all kinds of things that God has put in your heart to do, and you keep putting it off, and you keep putting it off. And it says, anyone who knows these things and doesn't do it, that's actually sin. It's time today to make the changes. It's time today to reach out. It's time today to make the contacts. Procrastination, I hate to say this, as I've been one of the kings of procrastinators in my life, procrastination itself is actually sin. That one hurts, doesn't it? For many of you that are like me. That one hurts. Why put off today? Why do today what we could do tomorrow? Because it's supposed to be done today. That's why. We have no certainty of tomorrow. We just don't. Proverbs 27:1 tells us exactly the same message. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. You just don't know. 2 weeks ago, I was standing right here on this platform. And I was sharing a verse with you. That now is the appointed time. Today is the day of salvation. And I shared that verse with you. And I was telling you at the time that for some people that you encounter, today could be their day. In fact, today could be the last day that they have. During that time, some of you were distracted. I know that never happens when I'm up here preaching, that you get distracted. But some of you were distracted. There were messages being sent back and forth during the church service. Can you believe that? That never happens, right? But it was happening that particular Sunday. There was a stirring that was going on, and not only were messages being sent back and forth in this building, but messages were being sent all over the Southern California and other parts around the country. Because during the time, right during the same time that I was saying that and we were sharing those verses, there was a helicopter crash. Suddenly. And this helicopter crash that came suddenly was a perfect example of what we're saying about how you don't wait until tomorrow, that for some people it could be the day. This was something that actually bothered a lot of people. And part of the reason that it bothered a lot of people and startled a lot of people is because it brought to us a startling reality that so many people then noticed at one time. And that is that you can have everything going for you, and you can have so many ducks in a row, but all the fame, all the fortune, all the recognition, all the order of life, all the monetary things, all taken care of, everything out of the way. Not that people don't have problems. Obviously, everybody has problems. But you take a look at something like that, and people realize that if it could happen to someone like that, it can happen to anyone at any time. Then, the following Sunday, this was last week. Scott sent me this picture. He took this picture. I don't know why he was creeped out by it, but he was creeped out by it. That's a pretty good looking picture there, isn't it? That was just last week, right up here on this stage. But he thought it was weird because he looked up at the picture and he saw the keyboard. So I appreciate the sentiment, Scott. He saw the keyboard standing there like it normally does, except this big, portly, fat guy that normally stands behind it wasn't there. And it just struck him as weird that you never know that suddenly somebody could just not be there. Well, the big fat guy's back today, but you don't know. I will tell you that coming back on the plane, we were coming back on the plane the other day, and I'm not one to... Who likes planes? Or who does not like planes, flying on planes? Some of you get creeped out. I never get creeped out on a plane. I don't. And usually turbulence, I laugh at turbulence. It's no big deal. It's kind of fun, right? Livens up the ride a little bit. But because of that helicopter crash, different things and everything, and so we were told over the intercom that we were going to be experiencing some turbulence. Okay, big deal. It's going to shake around a little bit, right? I never felt turbulence like this in my life. It was like we were at Disneyland on like one of those Star Tours rides and we're getting hit by, enemy fire. I mean, suddenly this thing is like shaking all over the place and people are literally starting to almost scream. And the only thing that lightened the mood was this little kid who thought it was funny. He was laughing the whole time. But the plane was really moving, and we were descending into Ontario it started really moving again and shaking and like turning and everything. And then they like accelerated the engines to try to like get through it. And then we're coming down. And as we're coming down towards the runway, the plane's just like going like this. Hey, you know, so easily things can go wrong. Life is like a vapor. We don't know. And so the question is, you know, where are we, and are we ready to step up? Because you never know who you're going to have to step in for. So anyways, moving on. Today what we're going to do is we're going to look at our to-do list. Three things that you should do if tomorrow were never come. Now, this is everyone's typical to-do list. This is not the one I'm suggesting, all right? But this is the typical to-do list that maybe you've had part of your life, and a lot of people have. Get up, survive, and go back to bed. Is that your life? Does that look familiar? I'm going to tell you that God created you for more than that. You got to understand that. God created you for much more than that. So if that's your life right now, I'm giving you a nice, gentle, loving kick in the butt to tell you that it's supposed to be more than that, all right? It's not just get up, survive the day, and go back to bed and get up and do it again. It's supposed to be much more than that. So we're going to go over three things. I want you to take some notes, preferably, that you would do today if tomorrow never comes. Number one, say you're sorry. Say, what? No, say you're sorry. And I'll explain. There's a couple categories here on where you're supposed to say you're sorry. The first one that you're supposed to say you're sorry to is God. We need to repent of sins and of things in our life that need to change. You know, the tax collector, you know the story of the tax collector when he went and he tried to get things right with God and he couldn't even look to the heaven. And what did he say? God, have mercy on me, a sinner. You know, we're all sinners here. There's not a single person in this room that is perfect. In fact, I can tell you with all certainty, there's not a single person in this room that's even close to being perfect. And so there are things that we need to ask God. God, forgive me. There are mistakes that I've made. There are ways that I've continued to fail throughout the week. Maybe I'm not in the right place spiritually where I should be right now. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. We need to say we're sorry. The great thing about it is we're saying we're sorry to a God who loves us and a God who's ready with open arms. So I don't know where you are this morning and what it is that you need to say in your time with God. But a lot of people often look at this and they say, oh yeah, I need to get these things right with God in my life. Oh, I'll do it hopefully soon. I'm working on it. I'm going to try to get better. I'm going to try to change my habits. I'm going to try to change my ways. I'm going to try to get things right. I'm hoping in the next few months I can get that. What are you waiting for the next few months? Today. What's going to be different a week from now? What's going to be different a month from now? Today's the day. To go with God and say, Lord, forgive me. Help me to get this right. Change this in my life. Have mercy on me, a sinner. We don't come to him. People say, oh, once I get my life cleaned up and I can make myself presentable to God, then I'll come to him. That's not going to happen. He's the one that cleans you up. If you could clean yourself up, you would have already done it. So we go to him to get those things right. Second thing, say we're sorry to others. There might be people in your life right now that you're not talking to. There might be people in your life right now that you have a strained relationship. There might be people that you're angry with, or they're angry at you. And you might even be saying, well, I have every right to be angry with them because you don't know what they did, and you don't know what they said, and you don't know how hurtful it was, and you don't know all this stuff. You're right, I don't. And I'm sure it was bad, and I'm sure it was horrible, and I'm sorry for that. But I do know in Ephesians 4:26-27 says, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. So in other words, if you're not going to let the sun go down while you're still angry, you're supposed to take care of that when? Next week, next month, 10 years from now? Today. Why? Because when you don't, it says right here what happens. You're giving the devil a foothold. When you allow this anger, when you allow this resentment, it tears you up. You say, oh, well, it's because I'm mad with the other person. Oh, the other person may or may not be affected. The one that's really going to tear up the most, the one that's going to be messing up the most is you. The devil uses that as a foothold in your life. Yeah, they might deserve your anger, but God, you deserve God's anger too. We're all sinners. We've all failed. Maybe you've offended someone else, and you say, oh, I just can't approach them. I just can't face them. I know I need to say something. I know I need to go to them, but I can't. And it's been too long. You need to reach out to them. Not tomorrow. I can't tell you how many times we hear the stories of people, they're standing at someone's funeral and they're like, oh, I just wish I could see him again. There's things that are left unsaid. There's things that I needed to say that I never said. This was the last thing we said to each other. And the regrets. There is no certainty of tomorrow. You take care of those things today. And then the third person you need to say sorry to or forgive is yourself. There are too many people today, and some of you in this room, I would guess as well, that walk around in a state of guilt. And the person that is oppressing you, and the person that is hardest on you, and the person that weighs heaviest on you is you. The one who's telling you the stories of how many ways you've messed up, on how dumb you are, on what a screw up you are, on how many things that you've totally just blew, of all the people you've hurt or whatever, the one who keeps reminding you about it the most is you. And it's crazy, really, because God forgives you, but you can't forgive yourself. And you carry that with you. In fact, some of the ways that you still mess up and some of the problems you still have is because of you carrying that with you and the guilt that you carry every day and the story you keep telling yourself about that's how you are, that's how you've always been, and that's how you always will be. When will the day come? Today? When you say what God has said. Child, you're forgiven. You got to forgive yourself. If God can forgive you, why can't you? If God looks at you and says, all your sins were nailed on the cross and paid for by the blood of my son, Jesus, then why are you not accepting that as paid in full and holding on to that which is yesterday? You can't do anything about what was yesterday, but you can be set right and set free today and move forward from now. So that first step was say you're sorry to who? To God, to others, and to yourself. Now, number 2. Say I love you. That's number 2. Oh, that is not as easy as people think. It is crazy how much trouble we have with this today. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. It is the greatest thing. God so loved the world that he gave his Son, that whoever would believe would not perish, but have everlasting life. The whole theme of the Bible, if you were going to pick one, from the beginning to the end, is the love of God. Oh, there's many you could choose, but that one is consistent all the way through. Love. And if there's anything that you got to not wait till tomorrow, today is to love others and to be loved. Some of you can't accept love. You can't accept it from others. You can't accept it from God. You've shielded and protected yourself and built so many walls around yourself that you just can't believe it. And so you won't let go and you won't let him do it. You shut God out and you shut everybody out. And you're depriving yourself of the greatest thing that you could possibly have. Love. There are people today that you love and you don't tell them. And they need to know it. In fact, you could do it right now. Right now, you could do one of the hardest things. People text so easily, but it's hard for them to text that. There could be somebody in your life right now that needs to know, God's put them in your heart right now. And you should send them a message right now saying, I know this is going to seem weird and it's going to seem out of the blue, but God just put you in my heart and I just needed you to know that I love you. You'll probably make them faint when they get it. And some of you will twitch when you're trying to text it. Because it's so hard. It's like, what if they don't accept it? What if they reject it? No, I can't. And you'll see that send button. It'll look like so small. I can't get it. And you say, well, I'm not the emotional, mushy type. I don't do that. Who needs that, though? Who needs that today? When you get a message like that, do you freak out, like not even know how to handle it? Let me know, because I'll send one to you today. Let's look at some verses on this. Hebrews 13, 1-3. Keep on loving. Keep on, like consistent. This is continuous. Not, I'll love you on certain days. Let's see, Valentine's Day is coming up. When's your birthday? I'll love you on Christmas. No, keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters do love each other normally, even though they hit each other and drive each other crazy, especially when they're younger. Val actually gave Scott a bloody nose once when they were younger. Once. Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. So you and I, all of us, when we see each other, we're supposed to actually lovingly care. look at how this plays out. Do not forget to show hospitality. Even to what? To strangers. You say, well, I don't know them. We do that all the time. I don't know them. What do you mean I'm supposed to love them? I don't even know them. Just met them. I don't know anything about them. It says, show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing. You don't even know who it is you're talking with. You say, well, I've never seen an angel. You don't know that. Angels will come and appear just like the rest of us. You don't know who God's putting in front of you. I can almost guarantee you that many of you have seen angels. You just don't know. And some of you are ruling some people out, going, oh, they definitely weren't one, right? There's fallen angels too, by the way. So you don't know. We're just supposed to show love to everyone. Continue to remember those in prison. What? Yeah, even those that have ended up there. As if you were together with them in prison. And those who are mistreated as if you yourselves were suffering. That's called empathy. Empathy is a part of love that puts ourselves into someone else's shoes and feels what they're feeling. So when someone comes to you and says, will you please pray for me, or will you please pray for my family because they're going through this and all that, and you say, oh yeah, of course, and then you never do it? That's not true love and empathy. When someone's going through something and you're like, well, that's their problem. I'll be polite, but it's not my problem. No, when you love, you feel what they feel. You feel for them. When people are mistreated, it bothers you. That's all part of love. I know this is small, so I'll read it for you. 1 John 4:16-21. So we have come to know and believe the love that God has for us. God is love. He's literally defined by it. Whoever abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. By this is love perfected with us, so that we may have confidence for the day of judgment, because as he is, so also are we in this world. There's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. We love because, how you say, well, how is it that I'm going to love? We love because he first loved us. If anyone says, I love God, and hates his brother, he's a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. And this commandment we have from him, whoever loves God must also love his brother. So we should not have a love issue if we have the love of God in our hearts. If we're having trouble even loving each other, then there's a love issue in our hearts. And it needs to be taken care of tomorrow? When? Today. Today. So number one, say I'm sorry to God, others, and myself. Number two, say I love you. One last passage here on love. 1 Corinthians 13, 1-3. If I could speak all the languages of earth and of angels, but didn't love others, I would only be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. In other words, I'm just an annoying, thrashing noise. If I had the gift of prophecy, and if I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all knowledge, and if I had such faith that I could move mountains, but didn't love others, I would be nothing. So in other words, it doesn't matter how spiritual you are. It doesn't matter how much you know. It doesn't matter how many great gifts you have for the kingdom of God. If you don't love, it's nothing. And the last one, if I gave everything I have to the poor and even sacrificed my body, in other words, you gave up everything, I could boast about it, but if I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing. Many a person sits in church with all their credentials of how awesome they are for the kingdom of God, and yet they don't love. It discounts everything. Love has got to be there or it's all worthless. Last one. Share the gospel with friends and loved ones. Share the gospel with friends and loved ones. This is very true. I don't know who wrote it, but I like the slide. We are living in the last days and never know when Jesus will come. Tomorrow may never come. Don't wait until it's too late to get right with God. Now is the time to turn your life over to God. Now is the time. Now is the time. When God reached into my life when I was just 17 years old, I remember the day like it was yesterday. And I remember why I responded to God when I did. Very clearly. Because I knew that He was speaking to me. I could feel Him. I knew that I wasn't ready. And I knew that if I left and something happened to me, I didn't have my life right with God. And I feared that if I didn't respond when I could feel Him like I did that day, I might never feel that again. I had no guarantee that if I didn't respond on that day, that I would ever get another chance. And I say that to you today because whether it's you or whether it's someone else that you know, when the time comes and God gives us the opportunity to respond, today is the day to respond because you don't know there's another time. You don't know you can do it tomorrow. You don't know you can do it next week or next month. You don't know. Even if you have a next week or next month, you don't know that the way that He's speaking to you now, you'll understand it then. Now is the time to respond. When God calls you to respond, you have to do it. Because there is a power involved that's helping you to understand. We have to understand that Romans 1:16 says, the Apostle Paul wrote, he said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes. If you're understanding the gospel, the Spirit of God is speaking to you, you understand that's not just something that you can intellectually know. That's God working. There's power there working. Don't refuse to respond to the power of God. When He calls, you need to listen. Because so often, it's crazy, because so often people will come to me and they'll say, oh, when you were talking, it just seems like you were speaking just to me. You know, everything that was said, it was just speaking just to me. It's like He was speaking right to me. And sometimes I'll walk away and in my head it was all messed up and I didn't even know what I was saying and I was all confused and I was just flapping around and I'm like, huh? I'll go home and I'll go, that doesn't even make sense because I thought it was terrible. But that's God speaking to you. And like I said a couple weeks ago, I think I said, if I had my way, I'd never preach a sermon again. Because when I preach, nothing happens. When I talk, nothing changes. But when God talks, lives change. Dead people become alive. People who are lost become found.